Hello and welcome to The Unbelievable Truth, the panel show about incredible truths and barely credible lies. The rules are as follows. Each panellist will present a short lecture that should be entirely false, save for 5 pieces of true information which they should attempt to smuggle past their opponents, cunningly concealed amongst the lies. Points are scored by truths that go unnoticed, while other panellists can win points if they spot a truth, or lose points if they mistake a lie for a truth. Now it's the turn of Graham Garden. Graham developed the format for tonight's show and also co-owns the company that makes it. So please welcome tonight's winner, Graham Garden. Your subject, Graham, is Sir Isaac Newton, English philosopher, physicist, mathematician and theologian, and formulator of the hugely influential law of gravitation. Off you go, Graham.
When Isaac Newton was a little baby, he never slept at all until the age of 5. To solve this problem, his mother hung 6 steel balls above Newton's cradle and set them in motion, hoping it would help him to sleep. It worked because inevitably one of the steel balls would hit him on the head. Isaac Newton always wanted to be a ballet dancer, but he dropped out of school early because his mother wanted him to be a farmer.
Marcus.
Yes, I think it's possible he dropped out of school early because his mother was keen for him to be a farmer.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
Yeah. After spending many happy years farming aubergines just outside Clitheroe, Newton started a brewery with his neighbour Josiah Ridley. And indeed, Newton and Ridley beers are still popular in the north of England to this day. One day, he saw an apple fall from a tree, and it set him wondering about the force acting upon it.
Henning.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, that is absolutely true.
They had a very funny comic strip in the Viz magazine 1 or 2 months ago where the apple fell down on him. That was very funny.
Hit him on the head.
Yes.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yes, as you correctly have identified, the hitting on the head hilarity was a subsequent invention, but the actual falling of the apple was what gave him the idea. So.
That was a pathetic attempt at a double bluff there, but never mind. It set him wondering about the force acting upon it. Once he had invented gravity, Newton made his fortune by patenting gravity and only allowing people to use it under license. Edmund Halley, the inventor of the comet, bought shares in gravity in the hope that it would have some relevance to astronomy, but he was to be sadly disappointed. Once the gravity market had collapsed under its own weight, Newton turned his mind in other directions, and he is now largely remembered for his many inventions. Among the devices he developed are the helicopter, the digital watch, the after-dinner mint, and the cat flap. After being fired by Oxford University for upsetting the professor of alchemy by proving it was ridiculous trying to turn lead into gold, Newton...
Marcus.
I think he may have upset the professor of alchemy.
No, he didn't. And in fact, Newton was a believer in alchemy, as well as in astrology and the occult. And after his death, thousands of papers on those subjects were discovered in a box in his house. So he wasn't right about everything.
No,
was
I
he?
think someone's clever. Turns out they're a nutter.
Yeah. Basically, only a bit of luck that he saw the apple fall and he didn't think, that proves ghosts.
So Newton returned to the farm. There he spent the long winter evenings inventing optics, hailed as a great boon to the pub industry. One day, he saw a rainbow fall out of a tree, and it set him wondering how light was made up. As it happens, Newton only identified 6 colours in the light spectrum. However, 7 was his lucky number, so he added another one for luck. Indigo.
Marcus.
I think, given that we now know that he was into all sorts of crap, I suspect 7 was his lucky number.
That is basically true. 7 was regarded as a lucky number at the time, and so it's been alleged that he saw the spectrum of colours and there were basically 6 of them, and so he added indigo to make it up to 7.
Which isn't really a proper colour.
Although my cardigan is basically indigo.
Well, I don't want to be rude about your cardigan, but it's not what I'd call a cardigan.
Sorry, not indigo, Primark.
Newton sadly failed to patent light. He was beaten to it by young Thomas Edison. So he returned to his farm. One day he saw a pocket calculator fall out of a tree. And it set him wondering what kind of a tree that was. But not being a biologist, he couldn't be bothered to find out. Newton's other careers outside the world of science were all dismal failures. His first and only reported speech in the House of Commons as a Member of Parliament was to ask someone to close the window.
Thank you, Graham. And at the end of that round, Graham, you've also managed to smuggle 2 truths past everyone else, and they are that among the devices Newton developed is the cat flap. Or at least he's widely credited with inventing it. Supposedly, he was being distracted from his experiments by his cat being on the wrong side of the door, and his solution was to cut a hole in the door and put a cloth over it to keep the draft out. And in fact, the story has been extended by somebody who said the cat had kittens, and he cut 2 flaps, one large one for the cat and one small one for the kittens, and then felt stupid when the kittens followed the cat through the large flap. Which I think adds to our general picture of Isaac Newton we're building up, that he was an idiot. And the other truth is that Newton's first and only reported speech in the House of Commons as an MP was to ask someone to close the window. He was a Member of Parliament from 1689 to 1690, and then again in 1701. His only recorded comments were complaining about a draft.
God, he really was an idiot. There are no windows in there.
Well, it was a different chamber then. It was rebuilt in the 1830s.
Oh, yeah.
There's a little clip for the trail there.
All right, so he's not an idiot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't make him a genius. Maybe it wasn't drafty, he'd just forgotten to wear trousers. Anyway, that means, Graham, that you've scored 2 points. In 1665, Isaac Newton presented the world with 3 fundamental discoveries: the method of calculus, which is the basis for much of modern mathematics, the spectral composition of light, along with the fundamentals of optics, and the law of universal gravitation and the basic laws of mechanics, and all by the time he was 23. There will be a short, depressed silence as we all consider what we'd achieved by the age of 23. Happily, I can hold my head up high, as I'd already written a series of sketches for Radio 4's Weekending, one of which was nearly used. OK, we turn now to Chris Addison. Your subject, Chris, is Albert Einstein, a German-born theoretical physicist best known for his theory of relativity, expressed by the equation E = mc squared. Fingers on buzzers, everyone else. Off you go, Chris.
Albert Keith Einstein was born to Dave and Shazza Einstein in 1874 in the town of La Châtellerault, in what is now known as the former West Germany, but was then known as the future West Germany. He was an unpromising youth and physically rather weak. The right side of his body grew at a slightly slower rate than the left, giving the impression that he was standing at an angle until late adolescence.
Graham.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think he was slightly skewed as a child.
No, he wasn't.
Well, you say that. I mean...
Unless Clive can remember some policeman round the Old Bailey saying, I remember that Einstein came in here and he was all skewed. So I'm afraid I don't think that's true.
Oh.
He also suffered from a lazy tongue, which would stick out at inappropriate moments, such as when he was having his photograph taken. And until the age of 9, he couldn't even speak properly except when uttering the words fluffering thuckatash, which are supposed to be pronounced like that.
Lucy?
I think he couldn't speak properly till he was 9.
Yes, you're
That is
right.
correct.
You're absolutely right. He was a late developer in terms of speech. And the modern term for people whose speech development is delayed is Einstein syndrome, which is sort of quite kind, really, because it's sort of saying, might be a little Einstein. Can't speak yet, might be an Einstein. Probably won't.
Chris Moyle's still suffering to this
Sorry?
day. It's Radio 4 audience, well done.
Yeah, they never heard him, but they know they're not supposed to like it. Following his success with the whole E = Mach2 thing... I don't really know about physics. Einstein found himself Great.
Yes. Yeah, he doesn't really know about physics.
I was contextualising. That was in context.
On your bike.
Einstein found himself a reluctant dweller in the world of academia. He would do anything to avoid work, often delegating it inappropriately. His housekeeper regularly did his marking for him. On at least one occasion, his driver delivered a lecture on his behalf. And when pressed to do some actual proper work, Einstein would often run seminars from his bed. This would occasionally end in disaster if one of his students leant on the lever which tipped the bed forward, sliding him through a trapdoor into a pair of trousers and down onto a kitchen chair below, a system which had been rigged up by his dog, Gromit. Einstein preferred tinkering away at his inventions in his workshop, patenting, amongst other things, a heated towel rail, a refrigerator, a deluxe gardening set, a cuddly toy and 2 weeks' bed and board in Magaluf.
Clive.
One of those must be true. I'm going for the refrigerator. I reckon he's patented a refrigerator.
You're absolutely right.
Oh.
Well done.
Einstein also invented the Toblerone. However, he was happy to be famous, and wherever he went in the world, Einstein insisted on living no more than 50 yards from an electricity substation, as the static made it easy to maintain his trademark crazy hair. Einstein was married 4 times, though he was careful to sign a prenuptial agreement on the last 3 occasions after the divorce settlement with his first wife entitled her to half of any royalties he might accrue, including his Toblerone income, any Nobel Prize money he might get, and all the Chris Christopherson albums. Einstein was always wary of being portrayed as a freak, and in his will stipulated that he did not want his brain to be placed on display in a jar following his death. His wish was granted. Einstein's brain spent several years in a Tupperware box.
Clive.
I think he must have said something about not wanting his brain to be put on display. Oh, no.
No, that's not true.
No, OK.
Graham, you've buzzed.
I think his brain was kept in a Tupperware box, though.
Yes, that is absolutely true.
Well, of all the things that should be true...
Yes, his brain was...
That was a Tupperware party that got way out of hand.
His brain was, in fact, stolen at his autopsy by someone, and then that person then kept it in a Tupperware box for many years. Oh. Thank you very much, Chris. And, Chris, you managed also to smuggle 2 truths past the rest of the panel, which are that on at least one occasion, Einstein's driver delivered a lecture on his behalf. And the other truth is that in his divorce settlement with his first wife, there was a clause about entitling her to half the Nobel Prize money he might get.
All of it, I think. She got
all of it.
Yeah.
Yes, you're quite right. I'm not reading.
He got the little token.
But when it came to it, when he did win the Nobel Prize, he didn't give her the money. And she always felt betrayed. And, well, she might. So.
It's a common complaint, isn't it, the women have, that their men often don't give them the Nobel Prize money they've been promised.
I wouldn't be sitting here today, Chris.
Yes.
Yeah.
Twice that's happened to you, hasn't it,
Yeah,
Liz? Medicine and world peace, I think, weren't they?
Einstein did indeed leave his brain to science. For years it was kept in a large sealed Tupperware box. Scientists studying it were amazed by the brain's uncanny ability to stop all their papers blowing about the lab when the door opened.